Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here a look at tonight's top story. Rescuers saved many people, but the death toll in the earthquake that shook Turkey and Syria jumps to over 11,000. Cross-border secondary students finally resume in-person classes in Hong Kong after 3 years. The death toll in the powerful earthquake that devastated southern Turkey and northern Syria has risen to more than 11,000. There are fears that freezing conditions may claim many more lives as rescuers race to search for survivors about 60 hours after the tremor struck. Sachin Khatri reports.
As the frantic search for survivors was stepped up, there were glimmers of hope for rescuers racing against the clock in Turkey and Syria. In the southeastern Turkish city of Adıyaman, applause rang out when 10-year-old Betül Edis was pulled out after 47 terrifying hours under the rubble of a collapsed building. Her relieved grandfather broke down in tears. Also in Adıyaman, rescuers cut through piles of concrete to extricate 3-year-old Muhammad Tanik and his 38-year-old mother Fatma, who were trapped when the 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck the region on Monday. In northwest Syria, residents rescued a newborn baby girl they heard crying under the debris. Her mother lay dead next to her. The infant was the only member of her family to survive. In the Turkish city of Kahramanmaraş, patience paid off when a search team rescued 3-year-old Arif Khan. International and Turkish rescuers had to dig deep at different locations in the province of Hatay to pull out children from the rubble. Greek rescue workers were jubilant after successfully saving a 6-year-old girl found 6 meters under the rubble. Concrete cutting equipment was used to recover a boy from under a collapsed building in the northwestern Syrian city of Cinderis. In the same city, a search team shouted words of encouragement as they pulled out a boy who was in pain after being pinned down by a block of concrete. But scenes of grief outnumbered the miraculous rescues. This man in Cinderis was devastated after the body of his baby daughter was found in the ruins. Search missions in Turkey's Iskenderun port were hampered by a massive fire which broke out after containers toppled during the powerful earthquake. The agony meanwhile continues for survivors. After losing homes and relatives, they are running out of food and medicines. A cold front bringing snow and rain added to their misery. Sachin Khatri, HKIBC.
Locally, cross-border secondary students were finally reunited with their teachers and classmates as they returned to their campuses for the first time since the COVID crisis. The education minister is confident that primary and kindergarten pupils will be able to attend in-class lessons in 2 weeks' time. Janice Lowe reports.
After 3 years of virtual classes, it was time for cross-border secondary students to return to campus. Some were at the Liantang Hengyunwei border checkpoint as early as 7 a.m. when it opened for the day. The students could travel by school bus or take public transport to reach their campus. Before today, this girl relied on her tablet to study online. It felt surreal, she said, adding that she did not have to queue at the immigration counter. It only took me around 6 minutes to cross the border. Cross-border coach drivers held up signs to help students find their school buses. Although the majority at the frontier this morning were students, this woman was among the few parents who accompanied their children on their big day.
非常非常开心，激动得不行。
The happy mother also headed to her child's school, although they had to take different forms of transport. My child is going to a new campus after being promoted to secondary school, she said. The education minister was at the Shenzhen Bay control point this morning. Christine Choi said around 1,000 students entered Hong Kong through Shenzhen Bay port, where 16 designated channels were set up for them. Primary and kindergarten pupils are scheduled to return to their Hong Kong schools in a fortnight.
We have confidence that on the 22nd February, we can resume all the CBS students come back to Hong Kong. And according to my observation at the immigration this morning, I think the arrangement is very smooth. So we have confidence that the arrangement and the time schedule will be as we planned it.
However, some cross-border school bus services have not resumed because their operators have not obtained a closed area permit. Janice Lowe, HKIBC.
The police were only able to meet 42% of its recruitment target last year. Out of 1,545 constables and inspectors it tried to hire, only 654 positions were filled, the fewest in 3 years. During the same period, 806 officers left the force, down from 975 in 2021 and 1,313 in 2020. Answering a lawmaker's inquiry, the force said it has taken steps to retain manpower. This included extending the retirement age of non-directorate officers from 55 to 60, as well as launching recruitment drives at local and mainland universities. The government has cleared the first hurdle in its bid to build light public housing units. Lawmakers on the Public Works Subcommittee overwhelmingly endorsed the scheme, even though many were unhappy with the government's approach. Raymond Young has the story.
Undeterred by the growing opposition, Winnie Ho put on a brave face as she tried to win lawmakers' hearts for the controversial light public housing project.
The
Housing Secretary again pleaded for compassion for those living in squalid subdivided units, saying the initiative will change their lives. But several lawmakers insisted while they are not against the project, there are many shortfalls. Teck Chi-yoon accused the government of disregarding the views of residents in areas where the temporary homes will be built. Andrew Lam, a town planner by profession, felt there is a lot of room to drive down costs. The authorities are asking for $14.9 billion to construct the first batch of 17,000 units, roughly translating to $870,000 for each home. This compares with $550,000 on average for a transitional home. In response, Ho said light public housing units are generally larger, and the price per square foot is actually cheaper. Yang Wen-kit, the Kowloon City District Councillor, who's the most vocal critic of the plan, said nearby residents are not convinced the site can be vacated after 7 years, 2 years for construction, plus 5 as temporary housing. Despite the concerns, the proposal was endorsed by the subcommittee, with 34 in favor and none against, while Yang abstained. But Michael Chen remained upset even though he voted for the proposal. He threatened to veto the funding request at the Finance Committee if the authorities continue to ignore his demand for detailed figures. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
The subversion trial of 16 opposition figures today heard details of what they had pledged to do in a bid to force the chief executive to resign. The prosecutor in West Kowloon Magistracy presented leaflets and Facebook posts and played videos. Macy Mock reports.
At the national security trial centered on a primary election in 2020, prosecutor Anthony Chow outlined what 7 of the 16 defendants who pleaded not guilty had done. They included Jang Tat-hong, a former Civic Party district councillor who was successful in the primary. The prosecutor played a video of his party's campaign in which the defendant called for the public to vote in the primary election for Pan-Democrats to secure a majority in the Legislative Council as a way to request the chief executive to agree to 5 demands. 2 others, Clarice Yeung and Lawrence Lau, were among 33 defendants who signed an online declaration aimed at compelling the chief executive to respond to 5 demands, including universal suffrage. Defendants Kelvin Ho, Michael Pang, and Si-Tuk Loy had also signed the declaration. Chow said that showed their determination to carry out the scheme. Chow said former lawmaker Helena Wong advocated for the primary election on her Facebook page. When the proceedings continue tomorrow, the prosecutor will present evidence against the other defendants, including former journalist Gwyneth Ho. Today was only the 3rd day of a trial that is expected to last 90 days. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Police suspect that a gunshot was fired at a window in West Kowloon Magistracy. A court security guard alerted police after making the discovery this afternoon. Sources say the police found a metallic ball at the site. The area was cordoned off, and a metal detector was used to search the bushes and pavement. Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden has underlined Washington's commitment to invest in industries which the Americans think China intends to dominate. In his State of the Union address, Biden also referred to the balloon controversy that has suspended efforts to improve Sino-U.S. relations.
I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world, but make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did. Before I came to office, the story was about how the People's Republic of China was increasing its power and America was failing in the world. Not anymore. Today, we're in the strongest position in decades to compete with China or anyone else in the world.
The U.S. Navy has retrieved parts of the Chinese balloon that it shot down off the coast of South Carolina last Saturday. Pieces picked up from the Atlantic Ocean were taken to a laboratory for further analysis. U.S. intelligence officials claimed the craft was part of a larger Chinese surveillance program controlled from Hainan Island. China says it was a weather balloon that drifted off course. The incident punctured already strained relations between Washington and Beijing, prompting Secretary of State Antony Blinken to cancel a visit to China. Despite their frosty relations, trade relations between the United States and China has set new records. Imports and exports between the world's two biggest economies reached $690 billion last year. That's $31 billion more than the previous high of $659 billion set in 2018. The U.S. imported Chinese goods valued at $536 billion, while China bought American products worth a record $153 billion. Washington's annual trade deficit with Beijing widened to $382 billion. Financial markets have reacted nervously after the head of the U.S. Central Bank said more interest rate hikes are needed to tackle inflation.
I think there's been an expectation that it'll go away quickly and painlessly, and I don't think that's at all guaranteed. That's not the base case. The base case is for me is that it will take some time, and we'll have to do more rate increases, and then we'll have to look around and see whether we've done enough.
Powell expects inflation to decline significantly this year, but the Fed is keeping an eye on the job market. A strong showing last month pushes the United States unemployment rate to its lowest level in 53 years. The concern is that firms will offer higher wages to attract a shrinking pool of workers, and this may hamper efforts to fight inflation. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 15 points. Top 10 active stocks. Meituan was down $10.60, and Tencent was up $2.20. BYD was down $3.40. JD.com was also down $3.40. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar. The euro is at 8.42, the Australian dollar at 5.47. Over in Europe, the London FTSE currently is up 55 points. On to the weather now. Mainly cloudy with light rain patches tomorrow and misty at night. Temperatures will range between 18 and 21 degrees. The sun will peak out again on Friday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Thanks for watching. Good night.